Hello, this is U.S. Immigration Attorney Sharifa Tharpe. I'm here live to take your U.S. immigration related questions. So, I have a good topic for you today. We have been talking about in the past couple of weeks, we've been talking about SB 1718. That's the Florida law that has come out that will greatly impact employers and undocumented immigrants who are working without a permit in Florida. Now, um, that is still set to go into effect on July 1st. And there are existing options available out there for some individuals who may be here without your papers. This is where the consultation is very, very important. However, I did want to, a viewer did ask me to touch on the Dignity Act of 2023. This is new legislation that has been introduced in Congress. It's a bipartisan legislation that has been introduced. As you know, if you've been following immigration news, immigration updates, you know that introducing a bill does not mean that it is going to for sure become law, that it is going anywhere, that it is in any way can be used at this point. However, it usually is with every law, it has to start with a bill. And once it's a bill, it means that I would want you to have some knowledge about this bill that may be turned into a law in the future. Now, we do have a very touchy and very divisive political climate right now. And because of that, the questions about immigration reform and about whether we can move forward with at this point, immigration reform is an uphill battle. However, with this bill here that has been introduced, I think it is one of the most detailed and most comprehensive type of bill I've seen recently. And in addition to that, it does have bipartisan support. So it was introduced by a congresswoman in Florida and so a Republican congresswoman in Florida, and then a Democratic congresswoman in Texas. So Veronica Escobar is the Democrat, and then Maria Elvira Salazar is the Republican from Florida. And I do think it definitely addresses a lot of the problems. So it doesn't only help undocumented immigrants, but it improves the backlog. So it addresses the backlog and as well as the asylum backlog. There are aspects of it that I don't like. But this is just a proposed law. It's not anywhere near being passed yet. So hopefully the concerns I have regarding, especially in the asylum part of it. So the asylum part of it is where I have concerns. But as this evolves and may turn into a law, we may, my concerns, as well as I know if I have these concerns, other people probably will have the same concerns. Those will be addressed as it moves on to be a law. But for the most part, I do think it's an exciting improvement of the immigration system. It's much needed, and it definitely brings modernizes immigration the way it should be in the U.S. to allow the U.S. to move forward, to be able to grow as a nation and have the right people, the right immigrants in the United States to help it move along, right, without all the division. Now, I'm going to go over this. I'm going to start, and I have posted videos summarizing the bill as well. So I'm going to, talk about those aspects of the bill. And the first is, how will it help undocumented immigrants? So undocumented immigrants, if you're here, you pass a background check, show that you pay your taxes, you are able to then then enter what's called a dignity program. With the dignity program, it will allow you over a period of 7 years, it allows you to pay, so they call it restitution, pay an amount of $5,000 over the 7 years to bring yourself to be able to comply with the dignity program and to be able to get your work permit, a travel document that gives you freedom of movement, not only in the US, but out of the US, and then also work towards permanent residence. So that's the first phase of this. And it is, this dignity program will bring about 11 million undocumented immigrants current on their immigration status. Once you get through that 7-year program and and comply with all the requirements, pass a background check, paid taxes, as well as pay that $5,000 fine, the next step is if you want to solidify your permanent residence, you would enter what's called a redemption program. In the redemption program is where you're actually working towards US citizenship. So with the redemption program is 5 years. And in the 5 years, you will have to show that you have learned English, that you have learned the US civics, that you have contributed to your community through volunteer work, or that you pay an additional $5,000 into, it's called an American Workers Fund that they would also create to benefit from the fines that are paid into the programs. And if you pay an additional, so on top of the $5,000 that was paid in the Dignity program, you pay an additional $5,000, you would then be able to get permanent residence and then US citizenship. As you can see, it's over a number of years that, but in the meantime, while you're in the program, as long as you comply with the program, you're able to keep your status current, keep your work permit, and also get a travel document. I like this. I think it's fair, I think it's humane, and I think it allows many people who are here. You may not have permanent residence right away. You have to work towards for a number of years, but it allows you the ability to work. It allows you the ability to travel freely. And as long as you comply with all the requirements, you would be on your way to getting residency, permanent residency, as well as US citizenship. Now, one of the things that they do say is that undocumented immigrants will not be able to access any public benefits, which one of the reasons, and I think it's a big stereotype that immigrants depend on public benefits because it's not necessarily the case. Not a lot of immigrants can even qualify for public benefits to start with. But giving immigrants the ability, empowering them with the ability to work, to be able to travel freely, that in itself will improve their quality of life and certainly reduce the need for public benefits to be granted, for additional support. But that is one of the conditions of this, is that undocumented immigrants who are then in the Dignity program, in the Redemption program, will not have access to public benefits. That does not mean, however, if you have US citizen children, that they can't access public benefits, just the immigrant. And that's usually the case anyway, right? Even undocumented immigrants, you have your children, you can get it for your children, you just can't get it for yourself. So it probably will be the same, because they wouldn't deprive a citizen of the public benefits, but they're just saying that the immigrants wouldn't be able to get that. So also with agricultural workers. So agricultural workers would then be enrolled in a special program. So they are considered separate. So you do have agricultural workers that are undocumented. And over a period of time, so over a period of 8 years, or 4 years and then 10 years, just depending on how you get into the agricultural workers program, you would then be able to get status as well. So permanent resident. Now, there have to pay into the dignity program by paying restitutions, being current on your taxes if you want to get permanent residence. So you'd still have to comply with those requirements, plus but showing that you are a certified agricultural worker and that you have been working over a number of years in the agricultural industry to be able to get your current your status current. So pay your taxes, pass a background check, pay the restitution that's similar to the dignity program that I mentioned earlier, and you then be able to also bring your status current, get permanent residence, and then eventually citizenship. Now, let me just touch briefly on how this bill addresses the visa backlog. So one of the biggest changes that I see with this bill is that it takes away the cap, the visa cap, the number of visas that can be released per year to spouses and children of permanent residents. I wholeheartedly agree with that. Because that's a major issue here. So many families are separated because the permanent resident doesn't get the same benefits as a U.S. citizen. So what they would do is basically put the U.S. citizen and the permanent resident on the same playing field that allows everybody, not just citizens of children and then spouses, to get status faster, but also to ensure that all spouses and children of permanent residents can get their permanent residence without the need to wait for this to wait on the wait list, and that's what creates this the long wait times here. So that is I think that's great. Now, other aspects of this is that for student visas, they would allow it to be a dual intent visa, meaning that you don't have to show that you do have to show you have temporary non-immigrant intent. But if in the future you do have plans to stay here, to find a job here and get permanent residence, they're not going to hold it against you to approve you for a student visa. Also, individuals who graduate with STEM degrees, so advanced STEM degrees, would be able, so STEM degrees is science, technology, and math. So engineering and math. So science, technology, engineering, and math. If you are in these fields and you graduate with a degree in the field, you would then be able to go from having the student visa to going to having an O visa with as an individual extraordinary ability. So you would be able to apply for an O visa, which the O visa is a way to be able to stay here. It's a dual intent visa, meaning that if at any point you want to switch over to permanent residence, they're not going to hold it against you when you're applying for the visa at the same time. So that's a major one. Now, people that have been waiting for 10 years or more for their immigrant visa to come to the United States will get it. Nobody will wait more than 10 years for an immigrant visa. So at the point that this and you've been waiting for 10 years now, you would automatically get your immigrant visa to join your family here in the US. And then the bill also expands on it makes it easier for family members of citizens and permanent residents to get visitors visas to come to the US to visit their family for 90 days. So like a 90-day visa. Those are the highlights. Now, one thing is the asylum, right? I'm a little alarmed about that one. So, with the asylum, it sounds great when you read it. Sounds wonderful. It talks about placing asylum seekers who come through the border. They would be placed at what's called humanitarian campuses around the United States. The humanitarian campuses would have state of the art facilities and resources available to immigrants who are coming through claiming asylum at the border. They would be able to have access to their counsel, to organizations that can assist them, and also medical facilities. They would have freedom of movement around the facilities, but what that's telling me is that there would be no freedom of movement outside of the facilities, and that sounds like detention. And whenever you're dealing with conditions like this where you're detaining individuals, I have yet to see an immigration facility that is going to that that claims that they can give immigrants all of these benefits. Usually, conditions are poor, and when it comes to detention, nobody wants to be detained. Nobody should have to be detained. And I think there could be some alternative here, like maybe check-ins, maybe not necessarily to have them detained, but have these humanitarian campuses where they can have freedom of movement, not only around the campus, but outside of the campus to work, to go to school, to do their activities, but also to check back into the facility, the humanitarian um, campus. So that's the one thing I don't like, is it just appears to me like it is a form of detention. However, what they say they will do is they're going to put more resources into hiring more officers, hiring more asylum officers across the board, so that there's the staffing available to make things move faster, to make processes move faster, including the asylum process, which would bring it down to a 60-day process. And then complex cases would then be moved on to an immigration judge, but there'll be trained asylum officers who could make decisions in 60 days. So that sounds great. All of that is great. Now, the I do like this one where they would also place um, facilities in different countries where there is an influx of immigrants who are coming to the US claiming asylum. They would put more resources into those countries to try to assist with the conditions there, to help people so that they're not having to flee the country. But also, they would have facilities in those countries where they would pre screen. So people would go to those facilities to claim asylum. They would pre-screen them, and if they believe that they qualified for asylum, they would get a humanitarian type of visa to enter the United States, to pursue their asylum claim. So I do like that, because it enables, really, you can't, what is driving a lot of people to the border is they have to come to the border, they have to be in the US to claim asylum. And so, if there are places that are in those countries that can take those people in to evaluate their asylum claim there, then it would stop a lot of people from trying to make it to the border, apply for asylum there to get asylum. So that's the main driver of the border crisis and situation. Um, So, it's a lot. There's a lot here to unleash. This bill is trying to modernize the H2A and H2B visa programs, to take certain caps off of the visa caps off the program, take off the seasonal requirements of the program. They're trying to increase the number of visas that are granted to individuals in certain countries from 7% cap to 15% cap. And all of this, it definitely would make the immigration system more functional and because right now it is dysfunctional. So, it all sounds great. Do I believe something that's going to happen anytime soon? So, based on my observations, I would want you to manage your expectations. I mean, this is definitely promising, and it has been introduced by a Republican and a Democrat together, and it is gaining bipartisan support. I do believe that we want some form of we need immigration reform. It's not a matter of wanting, we need it. However, the problem is nobody can agree how we're going to do this. Nobody can agree on how we're going to achieve this and what exactly needs to be done. This is another good part of the bill, I think, is that it does address not only the plight of undocumented immigrants and families that are separated by the visa backlog, but it also addresses the border crisis and border security. So a big part of this is that they will be throwing increased funding, so $25 billion dollars into border security to improve technology, to increase law enforcement at the border, to be able to stop unlawful crossings, be able to increase security at the border to stop and at airports to stop fraud coming into the country, to prevent traffickers and smugglers from doing what they do, which great they carry people in unsafe conditions, and at times they do victimize immigrants who are trying to get to the United States. And so they're going to increase law enforcement to address those issues. Now, with us, are going to they're going to make harsher penalties for fraudulent asylum claims, and then also unlawful border crossings. Because I think at this point, the way they're looking at it is that they've created such a humane and modern immigration system that there is supposed to be no need to for illegal border crossings anymore. So they're going to improve the border crisis by also increasing law enforcement, increasing funding, increasing technology to be able to enforce the laws at the border. So that in a nutshell is the Dignity Act of 2023. I mean, it's a lot, and I'm pretty sure I just scratched the surface, but I wanted to let you know it's here. It's there. It's just that I don't think it's going to pass anytime soon. It is right now, with the political climate, with the election coming up, I think you have it. You have one side that's anti-immigrant, and you have the other side that's trying to make it a more humane. That's ensuring it a more humane process, and I think everybody is determined to stay in their place until the election is over. So will this be passed before the election? I hope so, but I have doubts about that happening. After the election, it's going to depend on what happens. For example, we now see that DeSantis, who is the person responsible for this law in Florida, by the way, if DeSantis takes over as president, if he wins the election, we can already guarantee that we will not be seeing anything like this, any kind of law that tries to balance border security with immigrant rights. We're not going to be seeing that passing. What we will be seeing is the same bill that passed in Florida. We will see it passing nationwide. So, of course, the direction we go in regards to the laws that we see, immigration reform, is going to be dependent on who wins the next election. So in the meantime, I really think that there's going to be a stalemate until the election is over, and the when the smoke clears, we'll see who's left and what we can get out of that, what can come out of that. If it's the Democratic side, I think they're more open to immigration reform, and if they do gain control in Congress as well as in the White House, then we do have great conditions in place to be able to move forward with progressive immigration reform. So that's what, based on my observations, based on over the years, we've seen many bills that have been great bills that have been introduced. This is the one that is the most detailed, and I think it's logical. I think it's very logical. And it's doable, but it's just that nobody can agree on how to get this done and what exactly needs to be in there. And I think everybody's kind of happy fighting it out, for the looks of it, for the appearance of the elections. So go ahead, put your questions in the comments. If you have any follow-up comments or questions, put those in the comments. Now that I've covered this, what I do want to do is, right now, this is not a law. So it's not something that is going to fix your immigration status right now. Tomorrow, I'm going to touch on options that we have now, right now, to do that. So look out for me tomorrow in the live so we can talk about options right now. And if you want to figure out what your options are right now, go ahead, give us a call or schedule your consultation online so that we can talk about, I can advise you, listen to what your facts are, and advise you on that. So tomorrow we'll talk about existing options now. They're limited, and it's a very the immigration system is broken, but there are options out there, and I want to kind of give you a summary of what those options are. Now I'm going to answer questions, so put those questions in the comments. Hi there, Katie. Hi there, Rakesh. Hi, Lindy. It's nice to see you. Hi, Veronica. Nice to see you on YouTube. Thanks for joining. And then go ahead, put your questions in the comments. How can one get a green card without toxic marriages? So if you're in a toxic marriage, then you can go ahead and apply without a spouse who is toxic. Usually when a spouse is toxic, it means that they're mistreating you, that there are problems in the marriage. There's a imbalance between, so you're being treated well. You're being mistreated. And if that's the case, then you could qualify for VAWA. So if you would like to evaluate what your options are, what you can do is give us a call, schedule your appointment, and we'll be happy to talk to you about it. But now, if you're not married, you've never been married, you don't want to get married, those options are going to be based on employment or through other family members, like a parent or an adult child, if you have an adult child, or even a sibling. The length of time, though, for each of those is going to be differ. If it's an adult citizen child who's 21 or over, you're looking at a matter of months to a year. However, if it's a parent and you're 21 or over, you're looking at, 5 to 7 years. If it's a sibling, you're looking at about 14 years. I know in Mexico, it's 20 years now. And those are the things that this bill is seeking to address, to make sure that the length of time that people have to wait it doesn't get so out of control that it's going to get to a 20-year wait time that just feels impossible. All right. All right. Is there any new legislation with regards to VAWA petition? So, no new legislation. However, VAWA is pretty flexible. USCIS they have changed the policy manual to make it even more immigrant friendly. So it's flexible already. One of the aspects I would say that does create an obstacle for us would be the requirement that you live with the person who mistreated you at some point. But they even changed this to you have to show that it's during the marriage, to show that at any point you lived with that relative, so the spouse, the parent, or the adult child. And so, it's pretty flexible. You when you're applying for this, you have to show through credible evidence, that means believable evidence, which is very flexible, that you were, and that could include your statement, by the way, that you were mistreated by a spouse, a permanent resident or citizen spouse, a parent, or an adult child who's 21 and over. And so, there's no fee for this VAWA petition. It's there, they try to make it as easy as possible to apply for this. Now, it is backlogged like everything else. However, it's flexible, it's there, it's available, it's there for individuals also who are out of status, who are in status. So if you would really like to evaluate whether you qualify, go ahead, give us a call, and we'd be more than happy to assist you through the process. Still 5 to 7 years, even if the adult child is out of the country. Yes, yep, yep, exactly. It's whether you're in the country or out of the country, it's 5 to 7 years. So it is long. How long for final answer after submitting medical? So it's going to depend on their application. When is the immigration amnesty? So this bill that I just talked about, as I said before, it's going to take time and negotiations. And we're probably not going to be seeing any negotiations until after the election. Can you apply for a traveling document when you have a pending VAWA petition? If you have a pending VAWA petition with an adjustment of status application, then you can. Violence Against Women Act is made for women? No, for everybody. So this is why whenever I introduce VAWA, I say it says Violence Against Women's Act, but it's for everybody, right? Men, women, children, parents. So no matter your gender, you can apply for this. Use my prima facie so the prima facie, you have to go to the office. So it depends on the state you're in. Some states don't have a lot of benefits available for those with prima facie. Some states do. So for example, California, Washington, New York, those may offer benefits based on the prima facie. But some states, unless you have your social, your work permit at the same time, you would not be able to do that. What you can do is go to the office. So go to the state office, and the Department of Human Services in some states is called, or it may be the children and so. Children and Families Department. So you'd have to look to see what that office is in your state and call them, let them know. Don't make up anything. Don't make up any information. Just give them the facts that you have a prima facie and you're trying to figure out what you qualify for, and they can tell you what those requirements are. All right, so I have to head out. Thanks so much for your time today. I'll be back tomorrow. And tomorrow, so today I talked about proposed immigration reform. It's not law yet. Hopefully, we'll see something like this happening in the future, but it's going to take time. Now, um, what we can do is tomorrow, though, I'm going to talk to you about available options, options that are available now to get your status current. So look out for me tomorrow. Have a good one. Thanks. Bye bye.